Would the city clerk please take roll?
Karen Adams. Here. Joseph DeMott.
Here.
Karen Berry. Here. Joyce J. Here. Davis Reinhardt.
Here.
And Mike Stites.
Here.
And council members Tracy Langworthy and Wanda Sang are absent this evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of February 28, 2011?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion for approval, seconded by Councilmember DeMott. We need one abstention. Any changes to the minutes? Please poll the council.
Motion carries 5-0 with one abstention by council member Adams.
Thank you. Can everybody hear tonight? It sounds like the mics are not working. Can you hear in the back? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is proclamations and ceremonies. We have a proclamation for National Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week. Mrs. Wheatridge Karen Thaler will be accepting and reading the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, citizens of Wheatridge, good evening. Whereas multiple sclerosis is a disease that affects the central nervous system by disrupting the flow of information from the brain to the body, and whereas symptoms vary from person to person depending on where the central nervous system is affected, making it hard to diagnose, and whereas MS generally strikes in the prime of life, ages 20 to 50, and 73% of those diagnosed are women. And whereas 1 in every 520 Coloradoans has MS, with over 9,500 people living with the disease in our state, impacting more than 76,000 people. And whereas the cause of and cure for MS remain elusive, significant progress has been made during the past 5 decades, thanks to the commitment of many dedicated people and the strong support of Coloradoans. And whereas new treatments and advances in research are giving new hope to people affected by the disease, 10 nationally funded MS-associated research projects are located in Colorado with over $3 million in funding. Therefore, I, Mayor Jerry DiTullio, do hereby proclaim March 14th through the 18th, 2011, Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week in the city of Wheatridge, Colorado, done and resolved this 14th day of March 2011. Just a few words for those who don't know. I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting form of MS 3 years ago, and that briefly means that does go into remission, but if I don't behave and do good things for myself, it can become progressive. So there's so many people affected along the Front Range and in Colorado alone, and it was very hard. Doctors think I might have had it for as long as 10 years before I got diagnosed. So symptoms are very subtle, blurred vision, numbness, tingling, cognitive, those types of things are, if something keeps coming back or not going away, just might keep that in mind. It is very hard to diagnose, but it is a disease you can live with, and you just deal with it and manage it. So, to all those out there who do have the disease, carry on and take care of yourself and have a nice life. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's with great pleasure tonight we have the 8th annual Wheatridge 6th and 8th grade essay contest winners. That's held every year within our local schools. And Mrs. Wheatridge is going to assist Dave, and Dave's going to come on up with our award winners tonight. So please step forward, and they will call your names. We would ask that the students shake hands with Dave and Mrs. Wheatridge and then stand in the front here for anybody who would like to take photographs of your children. That's more than allowed. So remind the children to come in the front here until we're all done. I should say students. And please excuse our funky mic tonight. Our other mic is broke. So
thank you. I want to thank the mayor and the city council for having us again this year for our 8th annual Wheatridge 6th and 8th grade essay contest. I want to thank all our sponsors. I made sure to write them all down this year because I forgot some people last year. So this year, our sponsors are my company, which is Broadridge Financial Services, the Jefferson Foundation, Children's Dentistry, which is a new sponsor, along with the Salazar Foundation. I'd like to thank the school principals, teachers, and the students for participating this year. I'd like to thank Griff Worth, principal at Wheatridge High School, and Michael Schmidt for organizing these students at Wheatridge to grade the essay contest this year. I'd also like to thank Congressman Perlmutter's office and Hannah Mullen for coming out tonight. She's going to give each student a letter of recognition from the congressman for participating in this year's essay contest. The theme for this contest this year was making a difference. We had 339 sixth graders participate, and we had 240 eighth graders. So each finalist is going to get a gift certificate and a certificate of our participation from Barnes & Noble. The finalists will, at least the ones that are here, and we're also going to donate at least $100 to each of these elementary schools and Everett Middle School. So we're going to change it up just a little bit this year. We're going to start with the eighth graders first. So our first eighth grader is Kayla Brady. All right, and next, the overall winner for the eighth grade was Hannah Keller. All righty, for the sixth graders, first finalist was Mason James. Next is Sarah Smalley. Next is Melissa Gear. Next is Savannah Gallegos. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Next is Chase White. And the overall winner for the sixth grade was Joe Banks. So what we'll do now, we'll take pictures with everybody.
Thank you for coming tonight. I want to congratulate all of our principals, students, teachers, parents. Good job tonight. Please feel free to stay after the meeting, or you can go on home and enjoy the light later. So, thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. This is the info process. Mr. Dahl, would you mind closing the door at the back? Because after. Thank you.
Stuff will kill me.
The next item on the agenda is citizens' right to speak. Citizens' right to speak is reserved for members of the public who wish to speak on any item not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed 3 minutes. Others may donate their time to the speaker at the podium for a total of 9 minutes. When you are speaking at the podium, you will see a green light when you start speaking, a yellow light when you have 30 seconds left, and a red light when your time is up. So please step forward to the podium if you're speaking on any item not on the agenda. Spell your last name for the record and state your city and or your address.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Britta Fisher, Fisher. I'm a resident of District 1 and Executive Director of Wheat Ridge 2020. Had a couple of quick items for tonight. First of all, Happy Pie Day to everyone, March 14th. We've had a few festivities around town today. First of all, I have to give a shout out to Millie Nadler, who's sporting some fine pie symbol earrings. I didn't even know they made such things. So, Happy Pie Day to you. And we also celebrated today the grand opening of a business called My Pie Restaurant, and they donated 31.4% of their proceeds today to Wheat Ridge Math Department. So I just think that's something that we should all celebrate, and it was a great event. So thanks to all the city folks that helped to promote that and support that event. Speaking of things that need to be supported, just also wanted to remind everybody in the public that tomorrow there is a public meeting for 38th Avenue Corridor. It's from 6:30 to 8:30 at Wheat Ridge Middle School. And this is a great chance to give your input to the sub-area planning process that the city's going through right now. And these public meetings are best when there's a lot of public there. So we encourage you to attend and lend your voice and vision to 38th Avenue. Thank you.
Do you have anybody else to please step forward at the podium for any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Mr. Reinhardt, you want to add item number 12?
Yes, I move to add item number 12 to the agenda for this evening. Resolution opposing the Jefferson County School Board decision to close Martin Elementary School.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion to add a resolution. We'll need a resolution number later. As item number 12, please poll the council. Okay.
Mayor, if you like, it'll be signed Resolution 10-2011.
10-2011?
Yep.
Can we have a motion to add resolution number 10-2011 as item number 12, seconded by Councilmember DeMott? Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Councilmember Stites.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce consent agenda. There are 7 items tonight on it. 1A, Resolution 09-2011, accepting an easement and transfer of existing assignments from Jefferson County for the purpose of providing a corridor for the Clear Creek Trail. 1B, motion to approve payment of Murray K. Dahl Kuchenheimer, Renault LLP, February 2011 invoices for legal services in the amount of $24,562.64. I still think that you ought to shorten that name. Okay. All right. C, motion to approve award RFQ 11-8, design building of the Discovery Park Skate Park in the amount of $350,000 to Team Payne Enterprises Incorporated, Winter Springs, Florida. 1D, motion to approve award RFB 11-13-2011, Activities Guide Printing Services, two publication printers in the amount of $27,738. E, motion to approve the annual renewal for mobile COP computer system in the amount of $24,174 to Interact Public Safety Systems. E, motion to appoint Robert Blair, District 2, to the Board of Adjustment. F, motion to award RFP 11-1, natural gas suppliers to BP Energy Company. Is a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve 1A, B, C, D, E, F.
Is there a second?
Actually, G, because there's two E's, yeah.
Okay, A through G is the amended motion, because we have two E's on the agenda. Second by Councilmember Reinhardt and J. Discussion on the consent. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
The next item on the agenda is public hearings and ordinances on second reading. The order of testimony will be the city staff, the applicant, if applicable, and then the public, followed by council discussion and questions. Please keep all comments germane to the subject. Item 2 is Council Bill 06-2011. I'm going to open the public hearing. Councilmember Dumont.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 06-2011, an ordinance amending Article 11. Is that Chapter 11? Chapter 11 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws by adding a new Article 12 concerning medical marijuana and making certain amendments to Chapter 26, Zoning and Development, in association therewith.
Will the city clerk please assign an ordinance number?
Yes, Council Bill 06-2011 will be assigned ordinance number 1479.
Thank you. We'll move on to the staff presentation.
Mayor and Council, you've seen this before. We've done a number of study sessions with council on this. So it's the council action form is pretty extensive. Gives you all the background you probably would like to have. If you have questions, we have staff here from my office and also Ken Johnson from Planning Department. We're happy to answer questions now or after the public hearing.
Thank you. We'll move on to the public comment section. Do we have anybody here to speak on item number 2 from the public? Please step forward and spell your last name for the record and state your city or your address.
Good evening, esteemed council and Mr. Mayor. My name is Chuck Wharton, W-H-A-R-T-O-N. How you doing, Ms. Adams? It's been a long time. I'm a former resident of Wheat Ridge. I now reside in Arvada, but I'm partners with Diana McKinley at Nature RX, one of the two medical marijuana centers here in Wheat Ridge, and Kevin Burns also here tonight. He is an owner of the medical marijuana center that's located on 4045 Wadsworth. We've been very interested in the development of this ordinance. We're elated at the proposed ordinance. We find it to be the fairest, most thoughtful ordinance that we've seen from any municipality within the state of Colorado. We admire the fact that Wheat Ridge took the time to place their moratorium, not so that no action could be done, but so that you could diligently study, really look inside and develop the wisdom that it takes to create this historic moment. It's a brand new industry. We thank you so much for the opportunity to do business in this community, and we want to assure you that if you so choose to pass this ordinance, you have our pledge to protect the community, to promote the health and welfare of the community, and to prosper here. And we look forward to a long and prosperous association together. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else to speak on item number 2? Seeing none, we'll move on to council discussion and questions. Ms. Adams?
I see under financial impact, it says the financial impact for the city is unknown. I thought maybe the chief could give us a little bit of background on how it's unknown. I mean, is there going to be a financial impact on the police department, or do you have speculation on that, or is that probably not good to speculate?
I think there are two areas of financial impact. One is what will be the revenue that will be generated from these sites. I don't have that information. That would be something that would perhaps Kathy Franklin or somebody from taxing can speak to. There is an impact in regards to services as pertains to medical marijuana centers or even those residences that grow medical marijuana. I don't know that any of those impacts from a financial perspective rise to the level of concern by council. It does create a new arena, a new area for us in regards to enforcement and in regards to calls for service, but I've not seen anything there from a police department perspective that is causing me a great deal of concern. We have had, as I've told you before, calls for service medical marijuana centers, as have we at some residences where they're growing medical marijuana, but it's not something that's overwhelmed us from a financial impact perspective, if that helps you with your question.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments before I close the public hearing? I'm going to close the public hearing. The motion is in order. We have an amended motion.
Thank you. I move to approve Council Bill Number 06, 2011, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws by adding a new Article 12 concerning medical marijuana and making certain amendments to Chapter 26, Zoning and Development, in association therewith, on second reading, and that it will take effect 15 days after final publication. I further move to amend Council Bill Number 06, 2011 to add the following sentence to the end of Sections 11305B and 11305C. Medical marijuana establishments that were lawfully in existence at a specific location within the city as of the effective date of this section shall not be subject to this prohibition at their current location.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion for approval as amended, seconded by Councilmember Reinhardt. Discussion on the main motion as amended. Please poll the council.
The motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 3 is Council Bill 03-2011. I'm going to open the public hearing. Councilmember DeMott.
Thank you. Council Bill Number 03, 2011, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 11808 West 44th Avenue from Commercial 1 and Commercial 1 with use restrictions to mixed-use commercial interstate and mixed-use neighborhood zone districts. Case number WZ1009 RV America.
Thank you. If you're here to speak on this, we need an ordinance number, please.
Council Bill 03-2011 is assigned ordinance number 1480.
Please stand and raise your right hand if you're going to testify tonight, public and applicant and staff. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter? Thank you.
This is a little odd configuration, so bear with me as I use the cursor, and hopefully everything will be okay. For the record, Meredith Reckert, Wheat Ridge Community Development Department Senior Planner. This is case number WZ-10-09, which is a zone change application from C1 and C1 with use restrictions to mixed-use commercial interstate and mixed-use neighborhood. Location of the property is 11808 West 44th Avenue. Current zoning on the property is C1 and C1 with use restrictions. Comprehensive plan for the area is neighborhood buffer, neighborhood commercial corridor, and neighborhood. I'd like to enter into the record the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, case file and pack materials, and the contents of this digital presentation. The property is within the city of Wheat Ridge, and all proper posting and notification requirements have been met. Therefore, there is jurisdiction for council to hear this case this evening. This first exhibit we're looking at is a copy of the zoning map, which is overlaid onto the aerial photo. The property is outlined in red, and you can see the existing street system around at 44th Avenue, runs along the north side with Tabor Street extending down the east side. The property is 3.5 acres in size, is comprised of 3 parcels, and there's one structure on the property located at the northeast corner, which is currently utilized as an RV sales office, and there are also RVs for sale displayed on the front portion, as you can see in the aerial, and then of course on the rear is totally utilized as RV storage. With the aerial photo, you can see some of the different zonings in the area. The pink area that is similar to the property is also on the property to the east, which is a lumber yard and fencing operation. To the west is also C1 and C2 zoning, and that is a tire recapping facility with some office uses. The green areas, which are kind of to the southeast, the south, and then over here on the east side are designating A1 zoning. Those corresponding land uses include, starting at this location and to the south, single-family residential use, and then over here where you see the lake is part of the Clear Creek Greenbelt, that is Tabor Lake. Again, an aerial photo of the property. Again, you can see it's outlined in red, and it shows my take on the existing location of the current zoning line on the property. There has been some fairly significant action on the property, at least since I've been in the picture, since at least the 80s. In 1993, the current zoning was placed on the property. It was rezoned from RC and A1 to C1, but the property was divided into 2 different zoning areas. This front piece has unrestricted C1 zoning, and then this rear piece where I show the below the zoning boundary line is also zone C1, but it has only one allowed use, and that is for RV storage. There have been 3 unsuccessful zone change applications on the property. All were to rezone the rear piece so that the use restrictions were lifted and it could be used for other commercial ventures. The most recent one was in 2009, and it was a zone change to planned commercial development and for approval of an outline development plan. The case was recommended for approval by Planning Commission, but failed at City Council due to the fact that there was a legal protest filed against the application, and a 3/4 vote of council was needed, and it did not meet that, so it was de facto denied. I would point out that 44th Avenue carries about 14,000 cars per day, and Tabor Street is currently only about 20 feet wide with the existing right-of-way, which is substandard to the city's current street standard requirements. This is a copy of the city's structure plan from the comprehensive plan Envision Wheat Ridge. And the reason I have this up here is I'd like to talk about what has changed since the last application. First of all, in the fall of 2009, we did adopt the comprehensive plan Envision Wheat Ridge, and this is a portion of the structure map which is showed to designate the properties with different desirable land uses and show, you can see the green belt down here, the green line. This pink dotted pattern is 44th Avenue. What that stands for is a neighborhood commercial corridor. And then if you, it kind of depends on your interpretation, part of the property is shown as neighborhood buffer, which is sort of this ochre color, and then to the south of that, maybe about 1/3, is shown as neighborhood. That is the yellow designation. The neighborhood buffer area is intended to provide a mix of small-scale commercial uses with higher density residential, office, and commercial uses. The portion that would be shown as neighborhood would allow single-family and high-quality multifamily, and then the 44th Avenue commercial corridor is specified again for mixed-use retail, commercial, and residential. Again, the lines and the colors that are shown on this map are not meant to be solid, and it is based on the interpretation and the specific request which is being asked, and the conditions and the situation for those uses. In addition to the comprehensive plan, the property is located within the 44th Avenue Ward Road redevelopment area. The plan specifies desirable land uses community commercial on the front, residential on the rear portion. The request tonight is for a zone change to mixed-use commercial interstate and mixed-use neighborhood on the south piece of it. Because the MUN zoning on the rear portion does allow a variety of residential land uses, staff concludes that the request is somewhat consistent with both of the documents in that the MUN would allow residential development. Staff further concludes that the proposal also meets several other goals of the comprehensive plan and the neighborhood revitalization strategy, including the broader mission of the city to be open for business. So that's kind of the first piece that we're looking at. The second piece, or the second situation that happened, was in November of 2009 when a general ballot election was approved which lifted height and density standards for certain areas within the city, and this did include urban renewal areas, including the I-70 corridor, which also includes this property. The intent of the ballot issue was to encourage strong households with more buying power, to create a better employment base, to encourage an open for business attitude in the development market, and to encourage redevelopment of underutilized properties. The next piece of the equation was the relocation of the I-70 on and off ramps in anticipation of some major commercial redevelopment and to create a better safety situation with I-70 and the existing ramps. The existing ramps were moved from their old location, which was just east of Ward Road, over to about 1,000 feet to the east, which is also coincident with the western property line of the subject property. We believe that this relocation, which was completed this fall, dramatically changes the commercial potential for the property just based on the amount of traffic that's going to be driving by it based on the locations of the ramps. I have one more picture, which is actually the diagram for the construction plans. Again, Tabor Street's over here on the east, and then the existing on and off ramps, which were relocated, actually are located just across 44th from the subject site. Finally, in fall of 2010, I believe it was in September, City Council approved case number ZOA 0907, which was a proposal by staff for adoption of mixed-use zone district categories. And I guess the question is, why did we think this was a good idea, and why did City Council approve it? And generally, to accommodate mixed-use development, as the existing zoning code had really very few options available for zoning to some sort of mixed use. The streamlined development review process was instituted with clear rules. It's a flexible approach to land use and parking requirements, and also it's a form-based code with design standards that are then applicable to staff for us to review any sort of application. Again, this would be the first step of the process if the property is rezoned within this new mixed-use zone district provision. I would point out that this is the first private rezone request using the mixed-use development. Should this zoning be approved, they would still have to go through a platting process and also a a site development plan at the administrative level. What we're proposing as far as the location of that boundary line is that at this location, which is an exhibit staff prepared, which shows the boundary of the zoning designation, which is coincident with the A1 zoning line across the street. So to the north of that, adjacent to 44th, would be the proposed MUC interstate, and then the south would be, to the south is the MUN. And I would point out that if this does occur, there will be 2 zone designations on the property, which isn't typically customary, but not illegal. And we've run this by the city attorney, and he's comfortable with it as long as we would process a plat by which the zoning then would become effective to actually separate the 2 pieces of the property. There's been a lot of discussion. I've heard comment about some of the standards that are listed in the MUC interstate versus MUN. Probably the one that people are talking about the most is the building height. In the MUN, which is the piece that will be adjacent to the A1 zoning and the single-family residential development, residential structures would be limited to a height of 35 feet, which is consistent with the A1 zoning. Any other buildings that would have either a total commercial use or a mixed commercial residential use would be limited to 50 feet. In the MUC interstate, which is the piece that's adjacent to 44th Avenue, the total height is shown as being allowed, is shown as being 8 stories or 118 feet for a mixed-use building. Now, if you look at the way that standard is written in the mixed-use zone districts, it would probably be impossible for that to happen on this property, just because there would have to be some structured parking. By the time you fit in all the required parking and the 15% landscape coverage, the economics just don't make sense. We really see this site as being maybe perhaps a 3 or 4 story maximum location, just based on the specifics and the layout of the property and the limited depth. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. All agencies can serve the property with upgrades. Wheat Ridge Public Works is requesting a 20-foot right-of-way reservation for Tabor Street for the length of the property. At the time of platting, that would be when that would be dedicated to the city. Access points to 44th and Tabor would be analyzed at the time of site plan with the traffic impact analysis. All other agencies who responded to the referral have indicated they can serve the property. They will also be included if this moves forward as a mixed-use development at the time of subdivision and site development plan. There was a neighborhood meeting held on October 14th last fall, and there were 2 folks from the neighborhood in attendance, and there were notes included in your packet as to discussion. Planning Commission reviewed this at a public hearing held on January 20th. They did recommend approval for the following reasons. First, the rear portion is currently underutilized with the existing limiting zoning on it. The I-70 ramp relocation changes the commercial development potential. There is consistency with the comprehensive plan, and that the zone change evaluation criteria support approval of the request. There were 3 conditions they included. The first is that the zoning line be consistent with the A1 zoning line to the east, that the zone change ordinance would become effective with a plat, and finally, at platting, 20 feet of right-of-way be dedicated along the entire width of Tabor. In staff's analysis, we've drawn the following conclusions. Again, we needed to take a look at the zone change criteria, and we've drawn the following conclusions relative to the property. First of all, that there are changing conditions in the area due to the ramp relocation, which again support the zone change. The proposal we've concluded is consistent with the comp plan, as MUN does allow residential on the rear piece. There will be economic benefits with the zone change. All agencies can serve the property with upgrades. Traffic impacts, drainage, and compatibility will be assessed at site plan. And finally, compliance with architecture standards will be assessed at the site plan stage as well.
We did have a legal protest that was submitted after the Planning Commission meeting. What we've done is prepared an exhibit showing how the owner of the properties, how his ownership relates back to the site. The existing site is shown in blue. We're required to look at a 100-foot buffer area along each side of the property. This is the subject site, and we have concluded that I think our calculation came up to about 19.8%, which rounded up equals the 20%. Because that has been submitted, it does require a 3/4 vote of council. And that would conclude my comments.
Thank you. We'll move on to the applicant. The applicant have any comments? Please spell your last name for the record and your city or your address.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Mike Pharaoh, Pharo. I am a land planner helping RV America here with this assignment. With me tonight is the owner of RV America, Mr. Harry Satch, and we're going to let him back clean up at the end of my brief comments and Sandy Thompson's comments to answer any questions you might have. Also with us tonight is Sandy Thompson. Sandy is an architect. She's prepared some what I would call contextual graphics for your viewing pleasure of how these two zones or development within these zones would conceivably be put on the property. There are a few things that I wanted to touch on before we get to the pictures. We presented a zoning application to you a year or so ago, and there were a variety of conceptions, I guess, or misconceptions that seem to have taken place at the time of that processing that I want to make sure are not in place tonight. And in no particular order of importance, the height issue on the interstate mixed-use zoning Meredith mentioned. And again, from a practical standpoint, the height of anything developed on this property will be in the 3 to 4 story range. It's physically impossible to do things much higher because, as we know, as you go high, the square footage adds up, and the parking requirements become quite onerous, and you simply can't get from here to there. So, to the extent that development on this thing will.
Excuse me a second. Could someone please turn off their cell phones or silence them for me? Thank you. Sorry, I asked them to turn it off earlier, so.
So the point is that when we consider an end user, which we admittedly do not have at this time, I don't think that the end user will request a proposal to impact this site beyond the residential criteria or the neighborhood criteria that was mentioned there, the 35-foot for residential and 50-foot for retail. One of the things that really blew us out of the water last time was after the public hearing had been closed, the discussion ventured to the topic of hotels. We weren't aware that hotels are a bit of a hot button in Wheat Ridge, and certainly activities that may have occurred on an existing hotel west of this location seem to lap over, and I think we took the burden of that. There was also a misconception from a former member of council that at that public hearing we were proposing that a hotel and a hotel only be built on this property. That's not the case. We obviously have nothing to do with what goes on at existing hotels. I understand 3 weeks ago Wheat Ridge had another hotel incident, but Mr. Satchin had that shouldn't come over onto this thing. Hotel or motel is an allowable use in the zoning categories that we are after, as is the 118 or so foot criteria in the interstate thing. These are things that are in these zoning districts, these zoning classifications that have been worked out diligently by your staff. They've been worked out with the business community, with the residents, and they're part of it. Now, one of the things that perhaps is tying our hands is that I don't believe that the allowance of conditions is in place anymore. In other words, if we wanted to eliminate motels from this zoning, I don't think that's allowable. It's sort of all or none. In the interstate zone, if we wanted to agree to a lesser understanding of the maximum height, we would be in favor of that, but I'm not sure that is possible. So what we're looking at here is a situation where I think to a certain extent, we're going on faith. We're going on faith that the city's desire to develop retail and commercial in their city is going to occur. The entitlement processes that we put in place are going to be a positive, and that they're going to be manageable and nothing negative will come from it. That the people you've got in place to augment this process are going to do the work that they were intended to do, and we're buying into that as well. The one condition of approval that I must take exception with again is the dedication for additional right-of-way on the entire length of Tabor Street. I understand that your Public Works Department is required perhaps to come forward with that as a recommendation or a condition of this, but the plan that I believe should be implemented to develop this land would widen the right-of-way of Tabor southward from 44th to the zoning line that Meredith showed you, approximately halfway into the property. This would allow full access turning movements at Tabor and 44th and would provide us with access to our property from that portion of Tabor. However, to extend that right-of-way the full length of our property does two or three things that I think could be thought through in a little bit different manner. First of all, it's going to sterilize portions of the RV America property from future development. We're not going to be able to use that land. Secondly, it's an indication from the city of Wheat Ridge that they're going to extend a 60-foot wide right-of-way southward into the residential area that exists. And I'm not sure that is a desirable thing to do. In fact, I suggest it is not. To do so, you would be condemning the front yards of at least two houses that are existing south of our property, and you might be having to fill part of that lake in order to build Tabor Street further to the south. The physical practicality of extending that road simply does not work, in my opinion. I strongly suggest that we find a way to preserve the sanctity of this little residential enclave, not blow a full-blown road through there, but allow us the access we need to put full movement intersections in at 44th, and yet rapidly convert that road back to the residential lane, which today serves that property well, and I think in the future should serve the property. The other conditions of approval having to do with platting in order to consolidate the zone lines or provide ways of legal access from one parcel to another, that's all part of what we can do. So the thing that we come back to is that this site is horribly underutilized as it exists today. The only activity we have been presented with over time is by those who would build self-storage units, which is not a desirable use for the city. In today's market, users are not looking at lands that they have to spend time and money to entitle because there are so many other lands available for so many opportunities. The existing C1 portion of this site is not configured in a manner or is at a size that is conducive to contemporary development. This land's only about 125 foot deep, and nobody that you can think of can successfully make that size of a pad work. And lastly, as Meredith mentioned again, the change of access on the I-70 ramps, that I think should be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if you folks aren't presented with numerous opportunities to upgrade the 44th commercial corridor along there. So again, it comes back to the fact that we have followed your staff's recommendation. We have proposed these uses. We wish that we could tailor them a little bit more specific to our site, but then again, a standard zone doesn't fit every site, and we understand that. So we think that this process would work. It certainly works for us, and we would hope that it would work for you. I'd like to introduce Sandy Thompson now. She's prepared some graphics, and again, I call them contextual graphics, showing how a variety of development opportunities could be placed on this site.
Sandy, please spell your last name for the record.
Thompson, Thompson, and I live and work at 3319 Raleigh, so just on the other side of Wheat Ridge in Denver. And I do have some color graphics that I'd like to pass out, council, and then we created some boards just to get for more of the general public to see. My task on this project was actually kind of fun. I have worked for a number of developers through the years and seen everything, worked everywhere from Pueblo to Grand County with national retailers to restaurants. I mean, so in my experience of working with a number of different types of clients and types of buildings, I'm very excited to have the opportunity to look at what you guys have designated now as your mixed-use zoning. And so my task on this job was to take that zoning and look at what is feasible to be on this property. So as you look through these, and again, they're very conceptual, and some of them are buildings that I've done other places to see if they would fit on the site. One of the things, as Meredith mentioned, with any zoning, parking, and as I'm working with developers, parking is usually the thing that will steer the ship as far as how much we can develop building size. And so with your open space requirements, with your parking requirements that go, setback requirements, landscaping, all of it, these are 6 different options trying to get as broad of a range within what your mixed-use zoning would allow to be built on this property. Also with the reality of what developers look for in their matrix of what we actually would be looking to build on a property of this size. So with that, I've got a couple of, generically speaking, I think the first one is the office or hospitality. So we are looking at maybe possibly 2 buildings. 2 stories seem to be the economics of scale that makes sense. I know Meredith said that 3 stories might make sense. I'm highly doubtful that we would go 3 stories, and I am very doubtful that anybody would do any kind of structured parking. Structured parking is so cost prohibitive that, and especially with higher water tables and concerns, it's highly unlikely that anything would happen. So in order to make those parking requirements, this is probably more of a realistic. And I think with the architectural guidelines that you guys have placed on this mixed-use zoning, that's exciting for me as a designer, so we can be designing responsible, sustainable buildings that work within the context. And so again, my task here was to show it in light of the building heights adjacent, and I think this gives a pretty good indication. You can kind of see Tabor Lake, and some of these drawings I did them at different angles so we could get a better idea. It also kind of shows the I-70 ramp also to the west of Heine's Market. The second option is more of a municipal building or a school, maybe a daycare, something along those lines. So we're talking potentially 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. And again, you kind of can see contextually what that would do on that site. The third option would be something more like a medical office. I do know, after talking to a few folks on the urban renewal that their authority, that there are some medical groups that are looking for some locations in this area. Highly likely, but we still are talking about a 2-story building when we talk about elevators and, again, the economics of scale. When you're building a building like this, you're probably looking at a 2-story building. The next one would be like a large restaurant, say a Cracker Barrel or a something in the range of 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. One of the things that we do know with the parking, when we're talking about a restaurant, we're talking about 2/3 parking to 1/3 building. So whatever that square footage of that building is, 2/3 of the rest of the site would have to be parking and/or landscaping to make those requirements, to meet those requirements. For a retail development, we're talking about half and half. Most retailers are not going to go 2 stories. They're going to go single story, and they're going to look at a 60-foot bay to make sense. On an office complex, we're looking at probably 2/3 building to 1/3 parking ratios as well. So I think as you go through these, and I think I added, after the restaurant, a bank option where you would have a drive-through. Again, it sits more, all of the retailers, all of the office, they want the frontage. So the chances of it being pushed to the back, it just doesn't make good economic sense for any developer. So I do see the back portion being more landscaped, being more lower level, whatever it may be in that neighborhood designation. The last option is potentially, again, with the interstate designation, is the potential of having some kind of a gas station with a car wash. We are seeing right now development. We're not seeing a lot of development right now, I'll just say that. But we don't write zoning codes for right now. We're writing them for, our kids' kids. So potentially you could see something along the lines of that would serve the interstate. So a gas station could be a possibility. Again, it's a lower impact in terms of the in and out is very constricted, and with the way you've set up the zoning and the staff review, I mean, the approval that would have to go on whichever one of these buildings or any other combination, having those controls on the administrative level, I think, is brilliant. And I guess if you have any other questions of me in terms of experience in development or specifically on any of these building sizes, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does the applicant have any more folks to speak before we move on to public comment? Please spell your last name for the record and your city or address.
Harry, H-A-R-I, last name is Sach, S as in Sam, A-C-H. And I urge the council, I've been here before, I would like to pass the zoning. I don't know how long it's going to take me to sell the place, for instance, pass, because it might take 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. I have to put in the market because of the way the situation is. I got 2 other dealerships. They're all both for sale, but I have not got any bites on it. This location, I had a contract for the self-storage, but people came here, the city of Wheat Ridge, and talked to Meredith. They said, no, they don't want self-storage. It was a small building that tore down across the street, and that same guy was going to build over there, and they said no. So I appreciate if there's a way that you guys can give me guideline that what needs to be done. But this one here, last time I was here and somebody said about the motel that we're going to open up a whorehouse, everything like that. And I don't know where this come from. So that's why the council turned me down, because I don't know, somebody got up and said, hey, he was going to open up a whorehouse. Now I got a neighbor trying to buy my place for $200,000. I paid $760,000, and he had the guts to write me that he will buy for $200,000. That's why that's why the neighbor against me, because I can't sell the place to him or anybody else. I mean, how am I going to sell that? I got a guy next to Rocky Mountain Lumber Company wanted to buy it for $500,000, but the thing is, he needs to get the truck zoning. He has to come through the land, and he can't get that either. So if you guys can do that, like I say, it will take me about 1 year or 2 years to put in the market. Right now, the way the market is. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Any questions you have, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one point of clarification, and that is the Planning Commission gave a recommendation for Tabor Street dedication half the way down. So it's wrong in the staff report.
Halfway down. We'll move on to public comment. Please step forward to the podium if you're here to speak on item number 3. Please form a line at the podium and spell your last name for the record.
I thought other people were coming too. My name is Diane Tipton. I live at 4311 Tabor Street.
Please spell your last name for the record.
Tipton. We've been there since 1972 or 1973. I don't remember. There's so much about this that makes me very uncomfortable. Is The first off is where, I don't know how to show the line up there, or where you guys are here. Oh, there it is. But where the commercial zoning goes pretty much, horizontal along in front of the lake and all the way to the east, there are no residential areas till I don't know how far east. What's the next? That's west. Oh, it's the east. Yeah, it's past. Well, I think it's almost past Stan's Caravan, isn't it? No, maybe 2.
The testimony towards the council. Meredith, if you want to come forward to help her, that's fine, but we need the testimony to the city council.
Okay, anyway, it's more blocks than any of us can remember how far to the east there is another residential area. To the west, the next residential area is Vivian. Now, this is one small residential area that, from everything I'm hearing, is going to be, if the zoning changes right now, is going to be changed very negatively to the few of us on this street. I guess I don't know where to start. In the meeting on January 20th, Meredith has stated that the proposed zone change just somewhat was compatible with the changes of the 2 rezoning designations, interstate mixed commercial, interstate mixed neighborhood. It's not even really how the planning commission or someone commissions, it's not even barely compatible with that plan. To widen any part of Tabor Street doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because it's still going to bottleneck to this very small street that isn't very wide. People will, we have seen more traffic down our streets since all of this has opened up. We've seen the big tractor trailers make U-turns right in our intersection of 44th and Tabor. If it's wider, a more inexperienced truck driver will feel like he can come down our street and then would have nowhere to go. There's no place for them to turn around. It's just, and these things happen. It's a reality of life of what happens. Then what happens? They back up, or, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for us living here. The zoning that's there now, I think it's compatible with the needs of the community as zoning laws change and stuff changes and neighborhood laws change. There are places people need to store their RVs. They need to store their boats. They need to store all of their big toys that they can't have at their house. It's good to have some place nearby where they can do it. It's right off the highway. My company sold some land, and the person that bought that land, they turned it into RV storage, and they made almost $500,000 in the first year, gross income. And that was a while ago, and it's still full. Another friend of mine built a building like is being proposed here off of 26th in Youngfield. Beautiful office building. She's had it open for 3 years. No one's moved in yet. It doesn't make sense to plan to change the zoning. Like when Harry bought this land, he bought the land. Then he came to us on how it would work in our neighborhood. We agreed. It was different than what the zoning was, but it was very compatible with our quiet life on our little 10-house street is all we have. And it was very good. He bought this. He bought this property as it is. That's how it should be sold. And then the next person that buys it can come to the city and the neighborhood with an idea and propose what they want to do with it. I don't see how he can buy like a Volkswagen and then want to sell, a Lamborghini. It just doesn't make sense to me how he could do that. He stated in January 20th, he's not staying, it's not his buildings, he's just selling the land and getting out of here. And that's not, that isn't leaving anything that's really compatible with a quiet way of life on a very small road. And like I said, it's the only residential neighborhood there, unless the city has decided they wanted to get rid of us, our 10 houses. You really need to really stand up for us, because that 44 corridor, there used to be a nice gas station up there, a nice automotive shop up there on the first half that were in business for, a very long time, 10, 15 years. That could still happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anybody else from the public to speak on item number 3? Please step forward and spell your last name for the record.
Hi, I'm George Isquith, 4350 Tabor Street, Isquith. Just kind of, she hit on a lot of the things I had jotted down, some stuff, so anyway, but it just doesn't seem fair.
Speak up a little bit. The mics.
Doesn't seem real fair to be able to request a zone change just to sell your property like that. And then the 2 lots rezoning even sort of makes less sense to create this. A new owner would still have to rezone the back parcel, to which now would be nearly impossible to match the front zoning. And this could solely be lost acreage. The Brewer Tire saw the need for RV storage here. There is not any nearby. The closest is up by 64th Avenue in Arvada, as I look in the phone book and online. So I think that could be very useful still. If Harry would sell this for what he paid, I'm sure this would rather sell quickly. And an RV storage facility works very nicely here and could stay as the same zoning. Let the new prospective buyer present a change in zone for any new ideas. When I moved in here too, there was a house to the north of me and 2 across the street to the west. This is, and once again, a nice neighborhood. Just as the storm of July destructive force changed it in one day, we were saved by our insurance. Just as you can change it again in one day, now we will have no insurance. I guess my house might be the next on the chopping block. So much for a nice quaint town of Wheat Ridge. It's fast becoming a commercial concrete jungle. There is a good mix of properties here. You have the country store, the campground, RV storage and repair, the Parks and Rec, Greenbelt, and Tabor Lake all share the same corner here. Now some change is good, but breaking up that corner would look like a turn in the wrong direction. As you have all said, you will not go backwards. The zone should stay as it is. The city can build up this type of mixed use, and that can make Wheat Ridge shine and be an example city to others should follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anybody else to speak on our public comment? If you do, please form a line to the podium if we have more than one more person, so we can keep moving along.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Ron Marco, and I live at 4180 Tabor Street. I'm down at the end by the Greenbelt. Markow. Well, we've gone over this thing I don't know how many times, but I just want to give the same, reiterate the fact that we don't want to have any big buildings at our corner. We don't want to, you guys can all go home and it's all over with, but we got to live with it. So we don't really want any big buildings down there. He's got one good idea about this Cracker Barrel, and that's about it. But I do want that back third part of that property rezoned and stay as residential mixed use, so that it'll make a buffer for that for Diane in that residential property. And besides that, if you make that line across that zoning line across that with the co-alliance with the rest of the residential property, it'll make it a lot better situation for the neighborhood. And that's all I want to say. I guess that I just don't like to see this thing dragged through the horse like an old horse, dead horse, to the field all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more for public comment? It's my understanding that we were going to make a motion tonight to continue the public hearing based on testimony and lack of to council.
Jerry, I'd like to take up one issue before we do that. I question the determination of staff that it requires a supermajority based on the testimony tonight. The testimony, as I understand our statute, a supermajority requires 20% of the land area. And the testimony in the site says that this doesn't meet the standard, that it's only 19.8, and you cannot round up, in my understanding of math in the situation. Jerry, I don't believe this, based on tonight's testimony, requires a supermajority to pass.
Well, both I think the charter and the code say 20%, and that's
or greater. This is 19.8%.
I agree that 19.8 is less than 20, and
therefore it would only require a simple majority to pass.
I will have to tell you, I don't see a rounding up requirement in the. I understand why it was suggested because it's very close. But if you don't meet the 20%, then you're not meeting the 20%.
So if we required a supermajority, we would be subject to legal challenge by the applicant?
Well, any action you take is probably subject to that, but that would be one ground for reversal if I were challenging the action of the council, saying if I were challenging a denial. You've got a couple of choices. One is to go ahead and act based upon the fact that it's not 20%, and then it's a majority of a quorum. Let's see, this is an ordinance, right? Right. So it would be 5 votes. There was discussion of a motion to continue the hearing, which you can do, and I'm happy to look further at the 20% question. I don't know that I would change my mind. Probably not. You always have the right, whether or not you have a protest, to continue a hearing if you wish to do so. If that motion would pass, I'd have to instruct council members Langworthy and Sang to listen to the tape of the hearing, and review the material so that they'd be able to participate in the continued hearing. But yes, if you wish, you may act tonight. I can't tell you that 19.8% is 20, because it isn't, and that is our standard. If this were voting, you'd round up, say, a voting requirement. If it were 5 votes, and you round voting requirements up, but I don't think you round this up.
So, Mr. Dahl, you're saying that you don't need 6 votes tonight based on your ruling 19.8?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Berry, do you have some questions, or do you want to continue the public hearing, Mr. DeMont?
I'd like to ask some questions regardless of whether you're going to continue it or not, whether a motion is going to continue or not.
Even with 2 council members not here?
Yes. I'd like to continue asking questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Meredith? In looking at the comprehensive plan, is this mic on? Okay, sorry. As well as just the designations, there's criteria or goals that go along with them.
That is correct.
And I'd like some further clarification on some of the goals.
Okay.
In one of them, in the neighborhood, one of the goals is in the neighborhood designation. One of the goals is enhance community character. Can you give me a little bit about whether you feel the proposal complies with that?
As far as enhanced community character, the property right now is some pretty underutilized, especially the rear portion. There's minimal landscaping on it. Now that 44th Avenue, we have new exposure from the I-70 on and off ramp. I would think a new development with fresh new landscaping meeting all the standards would be an improvement along that corridor. That might also be an impetus for other properties to redevelop. So from that perspective, I think I think it would enhance the community character. The rear portion, of course, is really just a big parking lot, which I know it seems low impact to the neighborhood, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't mind an office building with a parking lot instead of RVs looming over my residential property. And again, it doesn't meet any of today's codes. Again, we'd be hopefully looking at some new, fresh development, perhaps some multifamily housing that could meet some other goals of the comp plan and the NRS.
One of the other goals that applies both in the neighborhood commercial corridor and the neighborhood buffer is ensure quality design for redevelopment. And I know this is just a zoning, so it's kind of hard to meet that at this point in time. But I know we're further down in the agenda, we have a design standard manual. Do you think that in combination, if we adopt that through that we can meet this goal?
I do, and especially, we went through a lot of time and energy from the staff perspective on the mixed-use zone districts. As you'll recall, we had several study sessions with the City Council, several with Planning Commission, a couple public hearings. We worked on this for about 1.5 years, and we feel like the standards that are in place will allow us some flexibility, but also get a good quality development, which is modern and clean and updated. I know this is kind of breaking new ground. We're used to seeing a development plan, and maybe that feels uncomfortable. But why did we pass the mixed-use zoning if we're not going to take advantage of it?
And another one was create a healthy and active community. And I think that was more, from what I read in there, oriented towards increasing walkability and access to transportation. And
certainly. And again, this new type of development that we're seeing everywhere else but Wheat Ridge is exactly that. It's pedestrian-oriented. It de-emphasized the automobile and certainly the RV. And so we think there would be benefits for the neighborhood as well. I mean, I know they are worried about traffic, but I think there might be if and when this does happen, there might be some protections we could try to build into how Tabor is designed.
Some of the other goals that I think it kind of meets is increase housing options, increase investment and stability, stimulate investment and redevelopment in the community. And I think that those, it kind of clearly meets the ones about enhancing community character are the ones that, I felt needed some additional explanation. I do have a question about the right-of-way extension, and maybe if we could pull up the map where it shows the zone.
Okay, so
maybe the third slide, I think.
Okay, well this
works it.
Okay.
The area below the red line is where it could be primarily residential with some commercial, some neighborhood commercial retail.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Pronto, it seemed to me, and the applicant only wants the right-of-way extended, the additional right-of-way extended to the red line?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Pronto, could you explain a little bit why you want the additional right-of-way? It does seem to me if we had residential uses in that south half of the property. Oh, thank you. Okay. On the south half of the property, you may want some additional right-of-way for entrance and exit from that residential development, or primarily residential. But maybe you could explain that little bit further.
Yes, I can. Two reasons that we are recommending that we have a 20-foot reservation and dedication of the street. The first is, as you've inferred, we do not know how this property is going to develop and where accesses may or may not be, and there would also be the ability to develop a sidewalk amenity zone to the south edge of this property. Secondly, having the right-of-way for this street, which currently is only 20 feet wide, which is an alley width. So we've got an alley we're calling a street, and it is serving 10 residents. We've had testimony by the residents that they have a lot of problems with any oversized vehicle coming down into this very narrow area and then having to use their driveways to turn around, etc. So having the extra width would allow at some time in the future where the city or the property owners would like to see a more normal average street width constructed, give them that ability. If this property does not have that extra street width dedicated, then the city would have to try to acquire that if at some time in the future you wanted a wider street south of this property line.
There was testimony given by the applicant that you were looking at getting a 60-foot width total for that area. You wouldn't be looking at getting additional right-of-way on the residential side.
No, what's being inferred is that at the north end of the property we have more of a commercial use, and so a 60-foot right-of-way would be normal, and we have 20-foot now, so we had recommended acquiring 20 feet on the west side, and then at some future time be acquiring the 20-foot on the east side of the street so that you could have a regular commercial type street to service the commercial properties on the north end. The typical residential right-of-way is 50 feet. So south of the project, the right-of-way could be somewhat less than it is now at that point. So you could have the need be reduced to a 15-foot need south of the property line if that were to develop, redevelop, or a roadway be extended farther to the south.
Without the additional right-of-way, would you be able to put in sidewalks along the proposed development south of the commercial area?
No, you would not be able to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Based on the comments that Mr. Dahl had mentioned and Mr. Reinhardt, it doesn't sound like we're going to make a motion to continue, Mr. DeMont.
I was under the impression at the time that I make the motion is when I would make the motion to continue. We have to hear out the public hearing first.
Continue the public hearing.
That's right. I mean, if you're at the point at which you're at action time, if you've concluded the hearing, you've taken council comments, then you're ready for action, and you can either act on it because as I've determined, it's not 20%. Then the point is that you're always allowed to act. You've got a quorum. You've got 6 council members here, so whether the fact that it's going to take 6, or the fact that it no longer takes 6 to approve doesn't change your thinking on your considerations on whether you wish to continue or not. Often things are continued when you've got a full council. You may or may not want to continue it. That's completely up to you. But if you acted tonight and you had 5 votes to approve, that would be sufficient to approve.
Basically, you could make a motion to continue, or I could close the public hearing and we could take action. It's whatever council wants to do.
Could I ask a question? If we were to continue tonight, would there be new evidence that we could enter into the realm of review?
Sure. A continuation would be continuation of the hearing. So that would give the opportunity for additional testimony, evidence by staff and by the applicant and the public.
I'd advocate that we close the public hearing, and then I'll make a motion.
All right, well, first of all, do you have any more comments or questions from from City Council before I close the public hearing? Ms. Jay?
The matter of the hotel, that possible use, even though I heard many comments as that it would not be likely, can that use be stricken from this mixed zoning, or do we have a possibility in that area?
Well, we do have the ability to put conditions on zoning. We're trying not to do that, just to keep the zone district pure, and so we don't end up in a situation like we've got today. I look back at this decision we made in 1993, and I think, what? Why did we do this? Because it's been a nightmare to administer. So that for that reason, we'd like to see things left the way they are, but that's at your discretion.
Close the public hearing and a motion's in order.
Joe, you want to do it or should I do it?
I move to continue the public hearing until March 28th during the normal council meeting.
Is there a second to continue? Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there a motion, Mr. Reinhardt?
I move to approve Council Bill Number 03-2011, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located 11808 West 44th Avenue from Commercial C1 and Commercial C1, I'm sorry, from Commercial 1C1 and Commercial 1C1 with use restrictions to mixed-use commercial interstate, MU-C interstate, and mixed-use neighborhood, MU-N zone districts on second reading, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion for approval, second by Councilmember Berry. Was there any amendments on the Planning Commission recommendation on the width, the right-of-way?
I would like to make an amendment to accept the 60-foot right-of-way to the proposed zoning line only from 44th South 2.
Is there a second? You have a second by Councilmember Jay. So you have the amendment to follow the, basically your amendment is to follow the Planning Commission recommendation. Is that correct, Mr. Dell? Meredith?
That's what I'm hearing, yes.
Okay, so the amendment is to follow the Planning Commission recommendation. It was made by Councilmember DeMott, seconded by Councilmember Jay. Discussion on the amendment?
I won't support this amendment as the testimony from the Public Works Director. To do so may result in us not being able to install sidewalks to a proposed residential neighborhood, well, residential uses with some neighborhood commercial, and I just think that that's critical.
So you want it to go all the way down? Okay.
We have an amendment to follow the Planning Commission recommendation. It was seconded by Councilmember Jay. Please poll the council on the amendment.
Motion fails 4-2 with council members Reinhardt and DeMott voting yes.
The main motion unamended. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the hearing for item number 3.
What will I do with all my spare time? Patrick. Do we need this anymore?
Let me see. Yeah, we have one more public hearing.
Pardon me?
We have one more public hearing.
Okay, so I'll leave it up. I'll do.
Okay, item 4 is Council Bill 02-2011. I'm going to open the public hearing. Councilmember DeMott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 02-2011, an ordinance amending chapters 11 and 22 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning business license requirements and taxpayer remedies. Staff has reviewed chapters 11 and 22 of the code and identified certain amendments to sections 1126, 1129, 11226, and 2245, which will be beneficial to the administration of the city's tax and business license program. The amendments include changes in fees imposed for licenses, unifying language in the code, and amendments needed as a result of changes in state statute.
Would the city clerk please assign an ordinance number?
Yeah, just for clarification, was this not a public hearing continued from the previous meeting?
Oh, that's true. It was.
Okay.
We're at the public hearing already, so we already have an ordinance number, so we'll go to staff presentation.
Council, you have, as I mentioned to you in the pre-meeting, a red line showing some additional changes that emerged from the study session where you gave us direction. Those changes have been made in this red line, and we prepared a motion that allows you to adopt the ordinance with the red line changes. If there are specific questions on the red line changes and to see whether or not they actually matched up with the direction you gave us, we think we got it right. Kathy Franklin is here to answer those tough questions instead of me.
Thank you. Do we have any council questions on the ordinance as discussed in the study session? From council? Do we have anybody here from the public to speak on item number 4? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and a motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 02-2011, an ordinance amending chapters 11 and 22 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning business license requirements and taxpayer remedies. I further move to amend Council Bill number 02-2011 on second reading to incorporate the amendments shown on the red line version presented to the council on March 14th, and that all portions of the ordinance take effect 15 days after publication, with the exception of the tiered license renewal program, which shall take effect January 1st, 2012.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion for approval, second by Councilmember Berry. It's the recommended motion that was passed out in the pre-meeting discussion on the main motion. Please poll the council.
Yeah, the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is ordinances on first reading. The purpose of first reading is to notify the public of the date and time of the public hearing. Amendments are allowed on first reading. Public comment is not allowed on first reading. Item 5 is Council Bill 07-2011. Councilmember Reinhardt.
I'd like to introduce Council Bill number 07-2010, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 and adopting the Streetscape Design Manual. The city's current street-state architectural design manual adopted in 2001 is largely outdated and lacks objective standards that are easy to implement. The architectural guidelines within this document were replaced by the Architectural and Site Design Manual in 2007. The streetscape design guidelines are still in effect but require comprehensive update for the following reasons: lack of objective standards, outdated street typologies, and the desire to create specific design requirements within the city. The proposed design manual addresses each of the above issues and clarifies what's required in new development and significant redevelopment, and establishes objective standards that are easy to enforce and will promote quality within the city. Is a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 07-2011, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 and adopting the Streetscape Design Manual on first reading. Order it published. Public hearing set for Monday, March 28th at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion for approval, second by Councilmember Stites. Please poll the council.
The motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is Council Bill 08-2011. Councilmember Stites.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's with much satisfaction that I introduce Council Bill 08-2011, an ordinance approving the annexation of land located in Sections 19 and 20, Township 3 South, Range 69, west of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Jefferson, State of Colorado, case number ANX 1101, Table Mountain Animal Center. Is a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
It's with great pleasure that I move to approve Council Bill number 08-2011, an ordinance approving the annexation of land located at sections 19 and 20, Township 3 South, Range 69 west of the 6th Principal Meridian, County of Jefferson, State of Colorado, to the City of Wheat Ridge on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, April 25th, 2011 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect upon recordation of the annexation plot.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion for approval, second by Councilmember Adams. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 7 is Council Bill 09-2011. Mr. Stites.
Once again, it's with great pleasure that I introduce Council Bill 09-2011, an ordinance approving planned commercial development zoning for property located at 4105 Youngfield Service Road and approval of a PCD concept outline development plan on property located at 4000 Cabela Drive and 4105 Youngfield Service Road, case number WZ 1101 Clear Creek Crossing. Is a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
So with great pleasure, I move to approve Council Bill number 09-2011, an ordinance approving planned commercial development zoning for property located at 4105 Youngfield Service Road and approval of a PCD concept outline development plan on property located at 4000 Cabela Drive and 4105 Youngfield Service Road on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, April 25th, 2011 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion for approval, second by Councilmember Adams. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 8 is Council Bill 10-2011. Mr. Stites.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to, this is great stuff tonight. This is pretty good stuff. I'd like to introduce Council Bill number 10-2011, an ordinance approving a planned commercial development specific outline development plan on property located at 4000 Cabela Drive and 4105 Youngfield Service Road, more particularly identified as lots 1.1, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 3, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 within the Clear Creek Crossing Concept Outline Development Plan, case number WZ 1102, Clear Creek Crossing. Is a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
So with great pleasure, I move to approve Council Bill number 10-2011, an ordinance approving a PCD specific outline development plan on property located at 4000 Cabela Drive and 4105 Youngfield Road, more particularly described as lots 1.1, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 3, 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 within the Clear Creek Crossing Concept Outline Development Plan on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, April 25th, 2011 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion for approval, second by Councilmember Adams. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 9 is Council Bill 11-2011. Councilmember Jay.
Council Bill number 11-2011, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws, Section 26-805, concerning nonconforming structures in the floodway district and related sections of Article 7 of Chapter 26. This ordinance established standards for the maintenance of existing nonconforming structures for human occupancy within the city's established floodway district. Is the motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 11-211, an ordinance amending the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws, Section 26-805, concerning nonconforming structures in the floodway district and related sections of Article 7 of Chapter 26, and set the same for second reading and public hearing for March 28, 2011, at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion for approval, seconded by Councilmember Reinhardt. Please poll the council.
I'd like to address the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Dahl, in reading this proposed ordinance, I kind of felt like a ping pong ball going between all the different sections back and forth. It was kind of convoluted. If there's any way to make it less convoluted and a little more understandable, I greatly appreciate that.
Well, I'll tell you this, that Tim and I ran this thing through the machine 4 or 5 times and went through the same exercise. And it's tricky because as you make one change here, it really does affect this over here. What we ended up sort of editing each other several times, and we ended up with the draft you have, and I understand that frustration. What I will commit to do is to sit down with Tim and we'll diagram it, because I think that might help, actually. And if that can somehow lead us to a way of saying it in words that doesn't raise the problem you identify, which I understand, then we'll do that. Failing that, we'll at least bring the diagram to second reading and see how you feel about that. But we'll take one more look at it, and I think maybe in a diagram form. But I will tell you, we plowed the ground quite a bit, and it evolved as we did so.
Thank you.
Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Item 10, we're moving on to decisions, resolutions, and motions. Item 10, Mr. Reinhardt.
Well, I lost my one of my pieces of papers, but we're in our ongoing effort to fill our boards. Thank you. We on February 28th, yeah, it was fine. We passed an ordinance amending the membership and the powers of the Building Code Advisory Board. We're now continuing to staff the vacancy, and I'd like to move. I'd like to move to appoint William Starker to the Building Code Advisory Board representing District 1, term to expire in 2014, and defer all other things we had contemplated.
Second.
We have a motion to appoint a District 1 member and defer the other appointments till March 28th. That was seconded by Councilmember Berry. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 11 is Resolution 08-2011. Councilmember Jay.
Resolution number 08-2011, a resolution beginning a city-initiated comprehensive rezoning of properties located on the Wadsworth corridor between West 35th and West 45th Avenues to mixed-use commercial. The city's adopted plans call for the redevelopment of the Wadsworth corridor with higher density mixed-use development. The current zoning on Wadsworth Boulevard, which is primarily commercial, makes compact mixed-use development difficult to achieve. In September 2010, City Council adopted new mixed-use zone districts intended for use in the city's priority redevelopment areas, including Wadsworth between 35th and 45th Avenues. Motion in order.
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Resolution number 08-2011, a resolution beginning a city-initiated comprehensive rezoning of properties located on the Wadsworth corridor between West 35th and West 44th Avenues to mixed-use commercial.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion for approval, second by Councilman Reinhardt. Discussion on item 11. Please poll the council.
Second, Mr. Mayor, I do have one letter submitted to me by a citizen, signed. She asked it to be read into the record. To the City Council, agenda item 11, Resolution 08-2011. I ask that you think twice before passing this resolution. I'd like to remind you that you were elected to represent the citizens of your districts and of the city. This is not a citizen-driven desire. It is apparently proposed and driven only by the desires and ambitions of the elected officials. Many people choose to live here because it was a nice place to live, a low-density residential community with plenty of businesses to support the needs and wishes of the people. I doubt that very many are anxious to see the Wadsworth Corridor converted to a high-density, high-intensity, high-rise corridor supporting the kind of density which you recently approved at 44th and Wadsworth. If that is their strong wish, there has certainly been no open sign of it. Once you have rezoned a property or many, it is too late to reconsider. Please deny or table indefinitely the proposed resolution. Thank you. Signed, Louise Turner, City of Wheat Ridge.
Mr. Dahl?
One correction on the motion. I think I heard it read as 44th Avenue and it should be 45th. Maybe I misheard. Was it? Can we just correct that the motion is for 45th? It is 45th. Thank you.
Please poll the council on the motion.
Motion carries 6-0.
Resolution 10-2011, Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes, as I believe most of us know, that the school board is again, for the third time since I've been on council, which is a year and a half, contemplating shutting Martinson Elementary School. In this case, it came forward again after a mere 6 weeks by my count, since they decided not to table it the last time. And I think that this ongoing on again, off again issues that is difficult for our citizens, leaving aside the content of the issue. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce a resolution. I'm going to read it, and I hope that you all move to support it once I've read it. Resolution number 10-2011, a resolution opposing the Jefferson County School Board decision to close Martinson Elementary School. Whereas the state of Colorado budget crisis has resulted in a budget reduction of $375 million to K-12 education, and whereas the impact to the Jefferson County schools includes an estimated budget cuts of $40 million in the form of school closures, larger elementary school class sizes, fewer schools of choice in secondary schools, student contact furlough days, increasing fees, and whereas Martinson Elementary School in Wheat Ridge has been identified as one of the two schools that's proposed to be closed as a result of these budget cuts, and whereas the impact of closing Martinson Elementary School is significant and will negatively impact the availability of public school choices for Wheat Ridge citizens, and whereas Wheat Ridge is working hard to reposition our community and the quality of our schools are the cornerstone of retaining and attracting strong households, the closure of Martinson Elementary School and the consolidation of students created new challenges for our city, as well as low to moderate income families in Wheat Ridge. And whereas the City Council of Wheat Ridge encourages the community input at budget forums hosted by Jefferson County School Board in April 2011, now therefore let it be resolved by the City and County of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, ask Jefferson County School Board reverse their decision to close Martinson Elementary School. Is a motion in order?
Motion is in order.
I'm sorry. I move to approve the resolution 10-2011, a resolution opposing the Jefferson County School Board decision to close Martinson Elementary School.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion for approval of Resolution 10-2011, second by Councilmember Jay. Discussion on the resolution. Ms. Berry.
First thought, you must have been at a Denver public hearing recently, because you said the city and county of Wheat Ridge, but we'd like to be a county, then that way we could collect all our property taxes too.
I'll accept the friendly amendment to my resolution.
I do think a school closure impacts our community negatively, and we are trying hard to revitalize many parts of our community. However, the school district is facing a very tough situation, and many times I feel like we say no to everything they come up with their budget cutting measures, and we never offer any positive alternatives. And so I'll support this, but I would like for this council to work with the school district and to come up with some solutions that will help their budget that we can support, because they are facing a very difficult situation, and we're going to have to do something.
Please put, Mr. Lamont, you have something to say? Ms. Adams?
Thank you. History has had it in my life that I have been a proponent of neighborhood schools. I've also sat many years on the strategic planning and the budget oversight committee for this Jefferson County School District. At this point in time, all I know is what I read in the paper is that they were lock arm as far as a board was concerned, and the board totally unanimously chose this to occur. So until someone approaches me as to what their board would like to see happen differently, I will not be able to support this resolution. Not that I am not in favor of neighborhood schools, but we need to look at, as Ms. Berry said, give me some other options to help the school district take care of some of their budget constraints, and let me know why this is not perhaps a valuable alternative, even though it's very uncomfortable. I won't be supporting this resolution.
Please poll the council on the main motion.
Motion carries 5-1 with Councilmember Adams voting no.
That concludes our agenda for this evening. Go on to city managers matters. City attorneys matters.
Happy St. Patrick's Day on Thursday. That's that. That's all I've got.
City clerks matters.
Just one I wanted to point out to the council, to the community, that we are now posting audio recordings of the study sessions as well. You can obtain those or listen to them directly on the city's website. You'll find a link to them on the same page that provides you the on-demand videos for the regular council meetings. And I think that's it.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Nothing that I think.
Ms. Berry.
Yes, I have a few things now that it's starting to warm up and your soil is thawing out and things are starting to green up. There's a lot of stuff to think about. And the city of Wheat Ridge has been doing many things to encourage urban homesteading or urban agriculture in the community. And one of the things that the city has done is to put together a guide to urban agriculture in Wheat Ridge, and that's available on the city's website. We now have a urban agriculture webpage under the Community Development Department, and the guide was put together by Live Well Wheat Ridge and the Jefferson Conservation District, and kind of gives you the do's and don'ts and some resources about chickens and gardens and bees in the city of Wheat Ridge. We have a community garden called Happiness Community Gardens, and many times the number of plots aren't sufficient for the amount of community members that would like to get their hands in the garden soil. We now have another community garden run by a nonprofit that's started, and that's Harvest Mountain Farm Gardens, and that's located at 4322 Zenon Street. And they have some available plots if you can't get one at the Happiness Gardens, and their email address is harvestmountainfarmgardens@gmail.com. Again, harvestmountainfarmgardens@gmail.com. And the Recreation Department will have that information for those folks who can't get a plot at Happiness Gardens. One other thing is on a kind of a local blog. There was some information posted the other day that said that the city was going to look at clamping down on folks putting up hoop houses in their backyards. And for those of you in urban agriculture, you'll know what a hoop house is, but for the rest of you, you won't. But they're just small kind of structures, mostly out of PVC pipe and plastic sheeting that will you can use to extend the season of your garden a couple months on either end. The blog said that the city was considering adopting regulations that would sort of prohibit those, and that's far from correct. The city actually is considering loosening recommendations or building permit requirements on those hoop gardens, making it so that people could have larger hoop gardens or hoop houses for longer extended periods of time. And the correct information about hoop houses and their do's and don'ts in the city are posted on the city's website. That's all.
Ms. Jay?
I have a couple things. First of all, I'm in a celebrating mood because of the opening of a new business in Wheat Ridge. This was our grand opening we celebrated, which was today was My Pie, which is a wonderful little eatery that we've opened, and the other one is Mod Moods, and which is really a furniture store that we have not had in many years here in Wheat Ridge. Very attractive, and I hope that many of our citizens will visit it. On a more sad note, I am very concerned about losing the Martinson School, and I agree that rather than just signing a resolution that we're not very happy about that, I do plan to talk to people involved in the decision and see the criteria around it and how we can be helpful with it.
Ms. Adams?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. DeMott?
Thank you. I just want to commend the Wheat Ridge High School students on their musical, The Sound of Music, last week. I got to take my kids, and although I watch the movie 10 times a week, I've never seen it live, and they did an incredible job. There was some incredible talent. The play was put on very, very well, and the German chocolate cake and intermission was awesome.
Mr. Stites?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, each time I say that this is an excellent time to relocate to Wheat Ridge, either your home or your business, and this time we're getting a double whammy because we're getting a new business locating to Wheat Ridge on 38th there, a new Peruvian restaurant. But not only that, we're also getting another building refurbished on 38th, and I think this is fantastic. And it sits right next door to the one that had been refurbished, which is fantastic. So I think that's great. Please try to do a positive thing for your family, someone in your neighborhood, your neighbor. And as always, please try to find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt.
Yeah, Mr. DeMott reminds me that we're all farmers here, and whether the rest of council knows it or not, through some of the funds available to us, we are sponsoring the Wheat Ridge lacrosse team with an ad in their little brochure they put out each year as a little fundraiser plus their annual thing. So the mayor and city of Wheat Ridge City Council, whether they know it or not, are supporting the farmers lacrosse team.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the Walt Martinson. About a year ago, the school board was here, and those who were listening to the discussion actually heard that the Wheat Ridge Middle School has started a gifted and talented program this year. One of the concerns about the middle school 2 years ago and a year ago was that the middle school was underutilized. So they've added the gifted and talented program for a central location within Wheat Ridge and the central Jeffco area. Also, what they're planning on doing is that since Wheat Ridge Middle School is considered to be underutilized, they will be handling 5th grade through 8th grade, and Stevens will be taking K through 4. It's a numbers game where you have to put as many students in one location as you can, and because of square footage and the cost of running a building. I know that the Martinson School was an important school to the neighborhood, and I understand their concerns, but I think the school district did address the issue of the Wheat Ridge Middle School being underutilized by adding more students to that location and also the location at Stevens. The problem that these two schools have is they're good schools. They have good staff and good parents and good teachers. The issue runs in that it is a transient location within central Jeffco, and a lot of those students, they start the school year there, but they're not there at the end. So you'll see CSAP scores suffer because of a transient population. But when those kids that do go all the way through Stevens and Wheat Ridge Middle School end up at the high school, their scores and their attitude and behavior is just as good as anybody coming from Manning or from Maple Grove or any other school within the city of Wheat Ridge or the surrounding area. So while I understand that there's concern about Martinson, which is a good school too, I think the school district made the proper decision based on the fact that these two schools can handle the capacity of more students and that they will be able to grow those two schools. And the issue would be is this the transient population, and that's something that as a city we're addressing because with Wheat Ridge 2020 and the Housing Authority trying to build stable neighborhoods, that's the issue. So Martinson, I think that it's great that you passed the resolution tonight, and I hope the school board will listen. But I think the school board has listened about the concerns we had a year ago, which was the middle school being under capacity. So with that, we're adjourned.